This is not the Penn State blitz. This is the Penn State recruiting blitz with Greg Pickel. Greg, it's getting really close to signing day now. Yes. Days away. A lot of excitement. Last year's signing day went so well for Penn State. As we get closer, since we last talked on the video, what have you learned? What are the important names? What are the important decisions that are looming that maybe people really need to focus on?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that we're having this conversation before the weekend, so things can certainly change. But going into National Signing Day week, which of course kicks off, you're watching this on Sunday, I think that the biggest thing to me, Bob, well, there's a few. Ja'Kai Moore, 3-star lineman from from Virginia, decides between South Carolina and Penn State on Monday. 3:30 decision. I think the Lions should feel good about where they stand, but we'll have to wait and see. Will Muschamp really making a hard charge here at the end. That's James Franklin and his staff. Then you move on to Wednesday. You have Noah Cain, the 4-star running back from Florida, originally from Texas. He'll make an announcement around lunchtime on Wednesday, National Signing Day. So Penn State's waiting to see how that plays out. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the only other thing I think they're worried about is John Dunmore, 4-star receiver from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, longtime commit. Jalen Sider, the new running backs coach, did a lot of heavy lifting to get to that point. Bob, I think they're the leader in the clubhouse, but it's really hard to say. Georgia's pushing, Tennessee's pushing, Texas is pushing. It's going to go down to the wire, and it's just important to remember that starting at the start of this week, coaches can no longer go on the road recruiting, and recruits can no longer come to campus. So you go back a couple of years, and the only thing they can do at this point, remember when Lamont Wade was being pursued by Pittsburgh and some others, Terry Smith was basically sending him messages every 2 hours.
Can't do it.
This is what you can. You can communicate with. You can do messaging.
Right.
You can't go see them. So basically you're left with, you're hoping for the best and sending some positive messages here and there. So it should be an interesting signing day for Penn State. 16 verbal commitments heading into it. Room for probably about 22 or 23.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot. If we're talking about 16 as we talk about this, what do you think the number might be by the time the smoke clears?
For this the signing period, I would say let's go with 18 or 19. Maybe a few guys come out of the woodwork. There's some guys still deciding whether they're going to announce on National Signing Day or if they're going to push it back until the traditional signing day in February. So I think that's the biggest obstacle to predicting that right now is if a few guys decide, then Penn State might add to their total more so than we expect. If a few guys push it back, then we're probably in a situation where Penn State is going to have a more active February signing day than it did last year. So you remember there was hardly any buzz or excitement last year in the traditional signing day. It kind of was what it was. But like other years, Penn State should lock up most of its class in December, with just a few little pieces left to fill out in January and February.
Are all the guys that verbalized to Penn State, do you expect them all to sign?
Yes, I'm going to say yes on Dunmore. He's the only one that's a little bit iffy, so yes, I will go with yes.
I thought I had you.
This back in my face next week.
And one more thing. Last year's class was a top 5 class?
Yes.
This year's class, when all is said and done, do you think it could be a top 10 class or outside the top 10?
They're going to teeter on the brink. I mean, it depends how you look at it. Average star rating will probably tell you one thing. The formulas the recruiting services use in terms of just evaluating commits by a point scale, it might be tough. It's going to depend on how many guys they sign, because if you have 16 in Alabama or someone else has 22, obviously they have an advantage in the terms of the calculation. So we'll see. I'll say top 15 for sure, top 10 if things go really well. Other than that, you'll find them in that ballpark.
Boy, you better not blow this, and there better not be a lot of guys not signed, and there better not be a top 20 class, or people are going to start coming after you.
2 feet of snow.
I know some people that already are not
right.
happy with you, so you better get this right. All right, that's it for this edition of the Penn State Recruiting Blitz.